For our next session, I am thrilled to welcome a true CPG digital marketing veteran, Kason Pimason. Kason is an executive advisor on digital innovation and is currently advising Rakuten. She helps organizations use design and technology to solve meaningful problems and has delivered hundreds of digital products that have drove growth for global brands, including Apple, Estee Lauder, and Time Warner. Kason is on a mission, people, to help enterprises scale for sustainable impact. I'm also pleased to welcome back with Kason, our InfoTrust's own Chief Growth Officer, Michael Lobon. Kason and Michael, I will let you take it away.
Thank you, Chase. Kason, so good to see you again.
You too. It's a pleasure, always.
I'm very excited for our conversation today. You've been, as we were chatting before the session, you've been in the industry and in the space of analytics for over 15 years. So you've seen lots of changes, and certainly we are going right now through yet another round of changes. So how do you see the measurement has evolved over this time?
Yeah, I mean, I have been around for a while. So I think for the better of everyone, I think it's just becoming more consumer centric. In the very early days of online analytics, everyone, I think, was much more tactical about what they were measuring. I remember when everyone talked about eyeballs, which I thought was a little bit disturbing, but it's really much more about consumer engagement, KPIs like net promoter scores and client lifetime value. Are really reflecting that, businesses really want that longer term engagement and relationship with consumers. I think the other thing, obviously, is advanced analytics. Really having businesses really understand how to use that in a meaningful way, particularly when, a lot of those advanced analytics KPIs sometimes are black boxes, right? So, how do you approach that? How do you make sure that you're getting what you need out of it? I think it's going to be a big shift. GA4 is a very good example of this, I think.
I love the plug for eyeballs measurement. It seems like we first went from eyeballs to bounce rates, and now, as you've heard from GA4, we have the next level of analytics that's going to be available to us, and hopefully they'll make it easier for us to tell the complete story of the consumer journey and not just what happened at one instance of one moment. Today's discussion or today's summit, we started this journey talking quite a bit about experimentation and testing and really taking tiny steps to success, whether it's success in yoga or success in digital marketing. How do you think about experimentation and playing these new tools, technologies, and not falling behind?
Yeah, well, what I would say is start simple. What I've seen is people try to put a lot of criteria that limit their audience sizes, which actually makes it really difficult to get statistical significance in experiments. So what I would say is, as you're starting, just keep the things that you're trying to test super simple and not have a lot of variables in those tests so that, the results that you have, one, you have a large enough audience to actually see the results. And then two, you actually have more of a correlation between, the things that you're changing and the actual results.
Yeah, I love the idea of simplicity. I think a lot of times when we start working on experimentation or tackling new objectives, we very keen on defining, well, it needs to do this, and this to be successful. And then the criteria becomes so overwhelming. And then we are looking at this of 20 different requirements, and it becomes impossible to meet all of them. And then we say, maybe we shouldn't do anything just because to take next big leap forward is going to be so difficult.
Yeah. I also would add, actually, make it easy on yourself to create the variance. So, a big lift for A to B testing, particularly around content, is creating that other variant. So I think doing simpler tests where actually creating the other variant is not a huge lift at the very beginning, actually makes it easier on people and you get more bang for your buck, right? Because you're not having your design team actually design to creatives, having to code to creative, it sort of builds upon itself as far as level of effort.
I recently read a couple of books on how people build successful habits. And one of the things that stood out to me in those books is habits tend to stick, or activities tend to become habits when we have an easy way to win, right? When we start putting an immediate, something huge for us, and have to say, well, I need to do all of this in order to be successful. Chances are that's not going to stick. But if you can create those small habits, small successes, it will be easier for you to continue to develop and ultimately reach the goal. One of the things that is very common when meeting or talking with large enterprises is this concept of pace. Almost in every organization, I'm sure we've heard this, well, we just don't move that fast, right? Or, yeah, that sounds great, but it's going to take us a while. And there's certainly, for some projects, there's a lot of truth to that. When you migrate thousands of websites to J4, or when you're implementing a new solution, it will take time. But how have you learned to deal with pace, and how have you mastered the ability to execute at a faster scale?
Yeah, so actually, I learned this at Apple, to be honest.
Okay.
The first iteration always takes the longest, and it's a slog. I won't kid with you. And there was a saying there: you have to move slow to move fast. And essentially, the model that they use, you see this on the iPhone. Essentially, make one prototype that's really, really good, but it actually takes some time to prove that out, but make sure that it's right and fully working, and then you can scale it quicker, right? The thing that I think causes a lot of delays for people, especially as you're scaling, at Estee Lauder, we had over 275 e-commerce properties. The difficulty is when you're changing midstream, right? And so, it's a little painful, and it's a little bit, again, sort of like the agile iterative process in some ways, but, really making sure that the iteration that you're deploying actually fully works, and is as elegant, as simple as possible, and then actually replicating that to scale. And just understanding that, the first time that you do something, it's always going to be hard. So have some patience and make sure that you get it right. And then you can actually build in the efficiencies. So sometimes you have to go slow to go fast, essentially.
Elegance and the simplicity, two things that really resonate with me. And yeah, absolutely, it takes time, and nobody ever said that it would be easy. If it was easy, it probably would not be worth it, right? So I appreciate that. Let's talk for a moment about implementation. A lot of times, and lately in the news, there have been this kind of debate, do we buy or do we build? And the idea of in-housing, as organizations want to bring more capabilities in-house. But then the question becomes, well, if we bring all of this in-house, do we have enough outside voices from companies that have done this across other organizations? And if we build this in-house, are we able to recruit everyone that we need? So how do you think, or in your experience at Estee Lauder, at Sephora, how have you thought about what capabilities to build versus where to rely on your partners?
Yeah, so actually, I think the key question is whether that technology or capability is going to be a differentiator for your business. Mm-hmm. So if it is a core piece of your business, if it's a core differentiator for you in the market, you should build it. And maybe not right away, but eventually have the plan to take it in-house. And the reason why is because that is the thing that differentiates you in the market. That's what you're selling. And you need to control that roadmap end to end. And essentially, you need to have the comfort that, you have to build the expertise in that particular capability or technology. So that's one. I think, is it a core differentiator for your business? If it is, you should build it in-house, at least eventually. There's also, a sort of pivot or transition phase for some businesses where they're not exactly sure if it's going to be a differentiator, or it's a totally new capability, in which case, completely buy, but understand and look out for, whether it's going to be something core to your business that you can actually, take to market in an unusual way. And then there are other things. I mean, I think, for example, like campaign management tools or GA4, to mention it again, is also another example of you would never build that, right? You would never build GA4 yourself.
Definitely not something that we would advise because the organization, whether you're in CPG space or any other space, chances are building analytics product is not your true core competency. And that idea of what is going to become your differentiator, that's ultimately what you want to own, right? And one of the things that I've not heard before is if it's your differentiator, is you want to control the roadmap for how you're rolling it out and how you're building it. I like that angle very much personally because it allows you to control what and when, where in other circumstances you might have to wait for a partner or for a vendor when they're ready to roll out changes. And some of the things you want to control yourself.
Yeah. And, this just came up in industry, right? Apple moving away from the Intel chip.
That's right.
So, yeah, very good example. They've reached their limit with what they can do, and essentially now they want to control it so they can control the roadmap and not be dependent on Intel. So,
and it clearly is a part of their differentiation strategy. So really fits in.
Yeah.
When it is something that is going to become a differentiator for your organization and you want to own the roadmap, means that ultimately you need to build a team and you need to hire these people to put this together. Right now, in the United States and worldwide, we are going through an interesting time when it comes to hiring, recruiting talent. So what are you looking for when recruiting people and getting team members to join your organization?
Yeah, I think there are two main things. One is integrity, particularly around data, right? So I'm sure, anyone who's done analytics has felt the pressure to say that the analytics is saying something in particular, right? So, having the wherewithal and sort of the compass to say, I need to tell the truth because the truth is important, and trusting the data and actually standing behind it is very important. And then I think the second thing is it's related, but essentially the grit to keep on iterating and to keep on challenging yourself and improving things, and having that ability to sort of self-audit and self-improve is really important. So I think two things, integrity and the ability to really self-improve and self-audit.
Yeah, when you mentioned self-audit, considering that we just actually had a session on data governance, right? And the idea of auditing what you have in place and certainly governing the process of collection of data, of analysis of data, storage of data, makes a lot of sense. In our first couple of sessions, we talked a lot about the keys to success. We talked about first-party data. We talked about the transparency when it comes to collection of data. Shafi was talking quite a bit about data governance and some of the keys to success. But if we had to reverse the question, maybe why some of the e-commerce analytics projects fail? Do you have any watch outs for people that are attending this event and thinking about implementing things that we were discussing today? What should they be watching out for and hopefully avoid?
Yeah, so my answer to this is I wish more projects would fail.
Okay.
So, and what I mean by that is what I actually see is most wasteful from a resource and time perspective is sometimes when projects are not going well or if they're floundering a little bit, I think people are a little bit hesitant to actually pull the plug, particularly leadership. So, at least what I've seen is leadership will just focus on something else and kind of let that project limp along, which, to be honest, I think is detrimental for the project itself, obviously, because it doesn't get the focus and attention it needs to right size itself. But also at the same time, for the integrity and the morale of that team. Um, Obviously, no one wants to say, hey, what I've been working on isn't quite working the way that I expected. But the acceptance of that and actually moving on, so that it's not a personal thing, it's actually something that you learn from. um, yeah, I mean, I think any projects, you hear this a lot, you know, fostering a culture of being able to fail. Everyone says it, but, actually walking that walk is really difficult. And I think from a leadership point of view, sometimes we just don't do it enough deliberately.
And I think your comment about, for more projects to fail, I think also can be, tell me if I'm wrong, but can be interpreted, look, we have to learn faster. And if you know that, look, this project did not work, we now know why it did not work, and we're going to apply lessons learned to the next project. Let's go. Versus kind of limping along, pretending that there is a chance, wasting resources, going in multiple directions, and then all of a sudden you're slowing down the whole company because you have a multitude of projects that are never quite finished.
Right, exactly.
Definitely an area to avoid. Since we have maybe another 10 minutes, one of the things that I wanted to chat with you about is around the trends. It's October 27 right now, and certainly holidays are right around the corner. Chances are it's going to be yet another unusual holiday season, but I think people learned that from the prior 2 years. What should we have ready from the measurement perspective, or what should we do from the measurement perspective to be ready for the next couple of months?
Yeah, so as you said, I think it's going to be yet different again. The circumstances again are different. I think consumer behavior is still different. What I would say from a KPIs perspective, I am a very simple, straightforward person as far as looking at analytics. So it's your regular ones. Look at your traffic as it comes into your site. Look at conversion rate. Look at new and repeat. Obviously, your sales and revenue. But the other thing that I would actually add is your time to delivery. So all over the news, everyone's been hearing about Biden going out to California to try to, I think the ports are open now 24/7, but all the issues around supply chain. Mm-hmm. So I think, it actually was a huge issue the first time around, like in 2020 for COVID. It continues to be. I don't think most people are measuring it. Because I think a lot of retailers are more concerned with the things that they have more control over, right? Which is the site experience and all of those kinds of things. But actually, if you think about an end-to-end experience, how long and how transparent the process is to get the actual stuff that you ordered is super important.
Yeah, I like the comment, our end-to-end experience. And because a lot of times, especially in digital marketing, we tend to obsess about acquisition and people coming to the website, and still sometimes eyeballs and conversion rate. But at the end of the day, right, if you get your customer to complete the purchase and you're celebrating that, yes, we hit our goals, and then consumer that does not get the product on time, chances are they are not going to be thrilled. And it doesn't matter that marketing did its job and the other department didn't, because it all contributes to the consumer experience.
Exactly. And it's also how you handle it too. I mean, look, we're still in the middle of a pandemic. I think, just making sure that your service people have the right mindset, and that it's just like with anyone else, right? Over communication, setting your messaging channels to over communicate about when to expect things, or if there will be delays, or you know you're like, I'm seeing holiday sales now already. I started seeing them back in September, actually, because I think some retailers were predicting the latency in supply chain again. Um, so it's just really about setting expectations, and having that conversation with your consumer along the way, so that they feel like they know what's going on, and they can prepare on their side.
Whenever I'm about to start working with a new organization, a new brand, especially if they have e-commerce, I go to the website, I complete one or two purchases just to test everything myself and just see how I, as a consumer, absorb what is taking place. And I did this, these two brands, I'm going to mention the names. And what was interesting, one brand, I completed the purchase and got an email confirming the purchase, and probably 2.5 weeks later, I just got an email, your product has been shipped. Where in my head, the expectation was, well, wouldn't it happen next day? The other brand sent me a note saying, look, we are experiencing some delays, but here is, we're going to send you messages so you know where you are with your product. The other thing is you can log in and view the dashboard that updates by minute, so you can see where we are experiencing the delays that are taking place. And interestingly enough, both products arrived at about the same time, but I really felt much better about products from one brand that over communicated and were very clear about when I should be expecting something, and then they actually over delivered, meaning that part of the package that I received, there was a gift just to thank me for the purchase and apologizing for the delay. And the other one was just a product that was late without any type of communication.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes such a huge difference, right? And even those moments in time, we sometimes, I think about experiences in like that one little moment, instead of actually understanding that, that one moment, that one touch point can actually make or break how they feel about you, and whether they're going to actually come back again.
Because there are so many choices, right? Chances are the product that you are selling can be purchased somewhere else, or there's another or similar product that you are competing with that can, the product might be about the same, but the communication can be possibly done differently by another organization. Looking at 2022, are there some trends that you are a bit concerned about?
Well, I think, again, tying to some macro trends, sustainability is just going to come at us. I think, obviously we're seeing it in the world with climate change and things like that, but particularly in e-commerce, its model is actually not inherently sustainable, right? So, shipping products one-to-one, essentially, or one-to-many, creates a lot of packaging waste. It's a lot of fuel, all of these things. I think that, as businesses and as citizens, I think thinking about how you can become more sustainable, how you can become more community oriented, I think is super important. I think it will actually be much more important through time to younger people, particularly millennials and Gen Z. Just as you see, they're much more concerned about climate change. They're much more concerned about sort of social impact.
So what can be done to alleviate some of these concerns and prepare ourselves for these changes?
Yeah, I think, the first thing to do is just look at your packaging at your warehouses. So I'm sure you've gotten packages, and, this happened sometimes at Estee, less and less, but, where you get a tiny little lipstick and it's in a huge box, right? So just making sure that you actually have the right packaging for the products that you're shipping out and that you're not over packaging is an easy first step. I think the second thing you'll see a lot more on the market is actually more sustainable packaging. So I ordered something from a brand called Loisel the other day, and actually it came in, a little paper envelope that actually could just be recycled if you did returns, right? So you could actually return in the same package, a fully paper product, no plastic. So I think there are a lot of things just around packaging that you can look at, particularly for smaller businesses. And then I think for larger businesses, it's about distribution. It's about how do you get those products closer to the consumer so that you aren't actually, shipping it across the country, for example.
And I think both items really contribute to the overall consumer experience, right? And a lot of times, if consumer sees that organization might be wasteful when it comes to shipping products, that might be something that they will reconsider when making another purchase or perhaps going with another organization. So yet again, that need for us to truly understand the consumer experience and everything that it entails.
Yeah, and actually Amazon started doing it, but I actually saw Target doing it first, is, the consolidation of your packages, right? Yes. So, hey, instead of having like 2 separate packages, you can actually consolidate them. This happens a surprisingly large number of times where multiple orders will come from one person. I've actually seen this during holiday, and actually just consolidating those products into one package could make a big difference.
As we are ending this, bringing the session to conclusion, do you have any recommendations for the audience?
Yeah, I mean, again, I sort of made this leap myself, but I think there's definitely something in the air, particularly around COVID, to think about how you make an impact on the community and a wider social impact. So I think from a market point of view, from a consumer point of view, everyone's looking for that younger consumer to sustain them and grow them. It will be around social impact, and it will be around being better citizens. And it's just a good thing to do overall. So I think look at your business, see what you can do just to improve things for yourself and your community overall.
Well, that's a wonderful note to end the session on. Be a better citizen and think about the social impact that you're making. Kaysan, always a pleasure. I do have one more question for you. How's the training going? If I recall correctly, you are training for the New York Marathon.
Yes, it's almost here.
Yes, it is.
Goodness. I have one more 10-mile run this Saturday. So
excellent. Well, good luck. I know Cincinnati Marathon I'm participating in is this Sunday. Have fun. New York Marathon is an amazing experience and enjoy it.
Thank you. Good luck to you too.
Thank you. Back to you, Chase.
Kaysan and Michael, thank you so much. That was awesome. Kaysan, I have a sticky note written down right now. I'm going to go on my desk. You have to move slow to move fast. That was awesome. So thank you for that.